The Child Within Us Lives by William Samuel. This book is dedicated to the carefree, joyful, triumphant child within each of us. Introduction. Quantum Man and the Guided Missile. Something enormous is soon to happen in the world. There is no sensitive person who doesn't feel this deeply. In every field, science, religion, philosophy, government, business, or whatever, a strange sense of disquiet is growing, a feeling of something imminent. As we look about us, we can see that the world is off course. Many who think they understand point to drugs, overcrowding, pollution, the overload of information, corrupt government, and any number of other possible causes. But what is happening now has a more significant and, as yet, undreamed of cause. The recognition of this deeper dimension comes with a solution for the world's problems. This book is about that. If we think of mankind in quantum terms as a single organism, we might picture civilization as a missile moving through time and space. This missile has been on its way for many thousands of years, headed for a special destination for mankind. Its internal guidance mechanism was turned on when the great religions and philosophies arrived to give humane guidance to men. For Western society, the missile's central system was activated at the time of Judaism's declaration of one God, and that declaration, along with similar statements from other cultures, has been the primary directive for society thus far. When Christianity arose and broke from the popular Judaism of the day, the missile received input that altered the course, much as our satellites today are given in-flight corrections as they move to do their work in the universe. With each discovery or development in history, Eastern or Western, external and internal, have come adjustments in society's direction. None of the developments in this long line of progression has been accidental or bad, despite the human tendency to judge them so. Everything that has happened has been driving us relentlessly to this present moment and to the events shortly to begin. Now imagine the missile of collective civilization nearing its target, ready to receive its final redirection for the next and perhaps the last phase of the trip. Not unlike the smart missile that sees the target ahead and directs that internal mechanism to drive itself straight to the destination. For mankind, the destination is a rediscovery of simple subjectivism, a new mark in non-space and non-time, a fulfillment of the original purpose for tangible life on Earth. As far as the relationship between time and space and their interconnections to tangible life goes, the end game's corrective information is presently being received within the quantum body of civilization. This information is intended to adjust and correct society's major systems for their final movement as mankind comes to discern the true nature of things, particularly time, space, matter, and awareness, life. In many ways, science, the vanguard of human wisdom, has nearly reached the comprehension already. What does this final corrective feel like to you and me here in the old world scene of things? It comes as a new clock turned on within us, as new sensitivity, as increasing intuitiveness, a new perception within us, as certain unfamiliar anxieties, disquiets, stresses, and discomforts, as inexplicable fear and depression. Anyone can look at the human scene and see the lids popping off here and there with acts of insanity and people trying to satisfy impossible urges. Who is to say what the northern geese feel before they assemble to make the trek south? Or the butterflies before they start their long, upward search for their ancestral birthplace? I know that dramatic, course-altering input is presently arriving within mankind. The sensitive feel it especially. This arrival is not unlike the way the ability to perceive color has developed in mankind in recent millennia. We are told that this sense is one of the latest developments of the human brain. But what is presently happening is at a deeper level of mentation. What is it? The arrival of the truly subjective nature of mentation. Quantum man's capacity for ever greater introspection, self-examination. At this moment, civilization is a little like a field of cotton beginning to bloom. First a boll here, another there, then more and more until one morning we look out and the entire field is abloom. Or it is like popcorn popping. One kernel pops, then another and another, until there is a veritable explosion of the rest. Hard-pressed, shaken together, and running over, mankind is coming into a conscious knowledge of the subjective sense of things, which is certain to alter the course of civilization. The first blooms have been the prophets, the seers, and the avatars, the insightful, those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Now the field is turning white, with the ability to perceive subjectively. Confusion abounds at the unrecognized newness of it all. Now that subjectivism is here, no one knows what to do with it. The major divisions of human activity have not made the necessary adjustments to allow the missile the freedom to change course. Neither education, government, religion, nor metaphysics has made the full turn demanded of them, and the time is short. In certain areas, science, with the help of subjective quantum mechanics, has adjusted reasonably well as it goes along, searching the vistas of tangibility. But it remains to be seen what scientists will do with their information once it becomes clear that they are now, and always have been, examining consciousness. People are individually willing to adjust as their intuitions and feelings come into focus. But the controlling groups to which they belong are vigorously holding to the old ways, refusing to listen to the new sounds within. Either the institutions of mankind adjust to allow men to change mental course, or there will be a sociological anguish unparalleled in human history. Pertaining to this subjective capability within myself, I have come to perceive special things about time, space, and matter that seem to be generally unknown. Yet it is essential that every man begin to understand them. Like so many of the things that have been shown to me in the past, I know that mankind and his science will find them soon. The mountain. I left the woodland's edge and looked at the mountain. No one had prepared me for the sight. No one had said that such a mountain existed. I stood there transfixed, my heart saying, "Hey, this is a mountain to climb." Except for that moment, there was no wait. With no more than a broken pencil, half a tablet of paper, and the clothes on my back, I struck out for the top. I take no credit for this climb because anyone who saw what I saw would have begun this climb as well. And immediately, exactly as I did. But these years later, the same mountain stands at the edge of the same woodland, and there are few who have made the trek to the top. If they knew the view from the peak of that mountain, they would not wait to find it and to make the climb. The river. I found the river as I found the mountain, unexpectedly. No one had told me about the river. It wasn't on the map. This was a strange and beautiful river, one to explore. Except for the time required to build a raft, there was no waiting to set out and follow the river wherever it went. Pushing away from the banks, I began a long journey to somewhere. It was coincidence, perhaps, that I began the journey that day with no supplies but the clothes on my back, a single pencil, and half a tablet of paper. I am sure many persons have made the same journey, but to this day I find few who even know of the river. The cotton field. Rachel and I found the special field one day when we took a wrong turn on the river. We walked out into the newly plowed ground of a cotton field and saw a white stone glistening in the light. I remember the yelp of joy when we realized that the stone shining in the sunshine was an ancient projectile point. 10,000 years before, as linear time goes, someone had stood where we were standing, holding a long spear tipped with a white quartz stone. 10,000 years later, we held the stone in our hand, and there were no other hands intervening, nor years. The 5 trees. I have been back to the cotton field many times during the past 12 years and have taken others there. There are 5 huge twin oaks that surround the field. I have become friends with those trees and have learned their secrets. The mountain climb, the time on the river, and the experiences in the cotton field are the subject of this book. It is a difficult story to tell because all of these events, while separate in linear time, are happening simultaneously in non-time for all of us. Each event has its own story, and I have written a book about each one. But now, in a wonderful and simple way, the stories have become one story, intricately interwoven with the tangible world and its people, its poets and dreamers, its scientists and sophisticates, its wise and simple seekers, and all their gentle things, birds and kittens, children and ancients. More, each of these stories is already woven into the experience of the reader who reads this book, whoever he or she might be. Not everyone who reads these words will understand all they have to say, but those who understand the least part of them will never be the same again. They will see from the top of my great mountain. They will flow with my river, and they will find a white stone in a white field that is ready for harvest. That field will be harvested soon. Overview. The limits of physical light and science. Science has nearly reached the limits of tangibility at both ends of the scale, first and last, large and small. Presently, our physical instruments are looking out to the very edges of the tangible universe of light and inward to the limits of the particles' apparent beginning in time and space. To a billionth of a second, it is said. These two views are one view. Human views will give way soon to the reality of things. The government of Godhead, not the government of man and his religion, will arrive palpably right here in man's finite measure because it is here already in simple, timeless truth, albeit not quite seen, recognized, or confirmed yet. As the lights of the world have said, the new covenant is written in the hearts of men already. There is to be a breakthrough and a breakout into childlikeness and simplicity. Beyond that, there is something for the child of us to do in the world. This book is about that as well. The mystical experience. The experience of illumination is a genuine event awaiting most of us. Exactly what this much touted and nebulous event is, among other things, is the subjective nature of consciousness breaking through our ordinarily objective thought patterns. These solipsistic experiences are moments when we catch a conscious glimpse of our own, or God's, subjective nature as it relates to the world. Most of us desire these happenings mightily and have them long before they are recognized or understood. So much has been written about illumination that no thinking person still questions its existence, albeit many have searched for it without success, and many more have wandered into anguish, confusion, and metaphysical gridlock trying to make a preconceived concept happen for themselves. Many more have been led astray by the fanciful accounts of those in high places who would like us to believe they know what they are talking about. The experience of gnosis is not uncommon, but it is often misunderstood or ignored by organized dogmatic Christianity and Judaism. In Western metaphysics, it is ignored, spoken of in hushed circles, frequently distorted. Illumination is better understood in the East, but misconceptions abound there as well. This quiet event actually happens often for everyone in unrecognized ways, much more frequently than it is understood. Light is our birthright. That experience has taught me that my experience is everyone's experience. That what is true for me is true for the rest of myself, including those who read these words. The move to simplicity and childlikeness. After half a lifetime, I began to understand that every breakthrough and breakout was accomplished by a personal move towards simplicity and childlikeness. Again and again, when my affairs had grown complex, a glimpse of light arrived, reducing earlier frustrations to new, simplicities, and revealing an underlying unity. Somewhere along the line of our inner development, simplicity and childlikeness become primary. Science has perceived this move toward simplicity, but neither science, religion, nor metaphysics has seen the equation between simplicity and childlikeness. The untouched child within us. The recognition of this will be part of the explosion soon to come. In a marvelous and mysterious way, an overtruth takes care of our affairs. But until I was convinced of this, the inner workings of science, religion, mind, and metaphysics were disconnected and confusing. As each glimpse of light arrived, the complexity was understood and soon seen beyond, and a new simplicity came into view. Then the process began again, and still another simplicity arrived to explain itself within another view, more basic than the last. I call these simplifying insights glimpses, and we will have much to say about them later in the book. They are extremely important. Surely, for all of us, the study of truth becomes a knot of intellectualism until something bursts through to help. Science confirms this process. The new sciences, embracing metaphysics to a degree, are breaking through into the comprehensive simplicity. Each breakthrough produces questions that proliferate into areas of confusion, and then comes another glimpse and a sudden turn toward an underlying, more fundamental unity. When the final answers are known in this world, the divine simplicity of the primal one, Godhead, will be all there is, and humanity's intellectualism will not only have reached its limit, but will have run its course as well. The intuitive knowledge of primal simplicity behind everything sparks the scientist's search as surely as the metaphysician's. Now, as the 20th century winds down, one can see that human searching has nearly reached the limits of human measure. But woe to the heart of us, the soul of us, remains where it was, just beyond the reach of the intellect. Neither religion nor metaphysics has performed as it promised. The heart and the soul, yes, the real of us, the Christ-like truth of us, the child of us, the ultimate identity, seems as far from our grasp as ever. Clearly, the fullness of Godhead remains beyond the limits of intellectualism and its organizations. But the wisdom about God that can be understood lies rooted in a knowledge of identity. The self, made in the image of God. Certainly, identity includes the heart and soul. Old landmarks and identity. Many years ago, believing I had left the hallowed halls of theology forever to explore the loftier towers of metaphysics, I wrote a long paper on identity. It was 100 pages of theological and metaphysical discussion that few, if any, including myself, fully understood. Then, years later, 19 years ago, after many glimpses of new light, many Gordian knots untied, retied, and untied again, I wrote of my most absolute discoveries and of the subjective views they permitted. That book had but a single chapter on identity. Today, having found that one does not leave old landmarks, but takes their wisdom with him to continually survey the single scene from ever higher perspectives, I write once more of identity, what it is, where it is, what it does, how I found it, and what I have learned to do with it when it was truly found. Now I speak of identity in a single word: child. What I did to find myself can be written in a simple, old, new equation. While it isn't certain how many will find the word or understand the equation, it is important that these things be written clearly and simply so that they will be meaningful to those who are searching. Quantum Man Today and the River of Life. Present civilization and its organizations, religious, philosophical, educational, scientific, financial, are like the great bend in the river of life just before the shallows ahead, just before the unsuspected turbulence of subjectivism, when life roars through the narrow passages. Historic education, religious education in particular, has paid little attention to its prophets. It has deemed subjectivism too unsettling and difficult to teach. Our temptation is to hang on to the old ways where few demands are made and the familiar pacifies us. But the river of life is moving relentlessly in growing, ongoing confirmation, and the river of life includes the rapids of metaphysical subjectivism, whether churchdom and science want to examine it and tell of it or not. As content as we might be in our religious views or in avoiding spiritual matters altogether, as so many do, the end of the quiet time looms for everyone. We are approaching a new view of things. The world is already caught in the swift flow of quantum information leading to new knowledge and strange, startling vistas. For the new perspectives being thrust upon us, neither the objective studies of religion nor the subjective of metaphysics, as they are presented today, will be adequate. The tumult we are already facing insists that mankind, if he is to survive, begin to think in a new way. Humanity, with its physical sciences leading, is soon to confirm the insubstantial nature of matter and time. Proud scientists and metaphysicians. Even beyond the turbulence of subjectivism, there is a sticking place where physical scientists and metaphysicians are loitering along the banks, wading in the shallows of arrogance and self-superiority. In this world of appearances, metaphysicians wax, wane, and suffer no less than anyone else, and in the end, they find their brands of subjectivism inadequately meeting their own needs, much less the needs of the world. Caught in the sterile void of absoluteness, the suffering subjectivist faced an awful anguish and wonders why his metaphysics do not work as it did in the beginning, why his organizations languish, and why there are no more answers now than 100 years ago. This book is for the metaphysician, the physicist, and astronomer who want more light and the answers to those questions. Once I wrote of the chemical insanity that would smash the world, and it did. Now I speak of a new madness in the name of pseudo-metaphysics to shake the world, wherein much of mankind will find its faith in everything shattered, unable to find God's good in anything, anywhere outside himself. Completely unaware of it, the bastions of legitimate subjectivism face an attack from every quarter by insecure and threatened religion, in the name of religion which isn't working either. The only ones who won't be conquered in the melee already begun, objectivists and subjectivists alike, will be those who have moved onward in their studies to find the light of the child within themselves and follow its leadings rather than the world's. The tree of life is soon to bloom. In the days ahead, when the flowering begins, those who run with the child will be part of the flower and the seed. As time goes, physical science will soon understand what time and space are actually about. In a very literal sense, we are approaching the end of human ignorance. If the prophets are right, and they have been remarkably right to date, our search to the limits of light, human understanding, corresponds to a period of tumult in personal and world affairs. Therefore, we have only a short time remaining to turn from our self-limiting views, slough off the old sense of ignorance with its cherished notions, and awaken to the child of identity and its birthright. But that isn't the end of things either. Humanity is soon to make a spiritual and metaphysical break out into a new day, a new time and space. Those who find the child within and listen to its covenant are to do what they have been intended to do from the beginning of linear history. Another dimension is to be added. This book is about that. The reader has a role to play in these events. This volume would not have found its way into your hands unless you were to be a part of the story soon to unfold. How to read this book. Dear reader, truth, however it is expressed, whether it is the physics of the world or the jargon of the mystic, contains layer upon layer of meaning, addressing every human condition and state of comprehension. Consider David's 23rd Psalm. His words, "I shall not want," mean something to the trusting child, to the fearful heart of the soldier, to the anguished lover, the worried businessman, the invalid, the mother and father. It is a meaningful statement to the aging heart of one grown weary of the world, or to any human condition one might imagine. Isn't that true? If those 4 words can mean so much to so many, is it any wonder that some meanings may elude us for the moment? Reader, do not struggle with this book. Read gently. If something seems vague, do not puzzle over much. But read on. Things that aren't clear immediately will become clear later, and when you have an opportunity to read small sections again, you will be delighted to find that the book has become new again. Repetition is not necessarily repetition. With each glimpse, the entire book is new, and so is our world, because it is yet to be surveyed in the light just discovered. There is more to read on each topic in the related papers section of the book. There is a saying that nothing has been read once until it has been read 12 times. Read these words, make them your own, eat them up, as the ancients said. But with all the reading and thought, get understanding. The intellect can reach no more than its limits of reason and logic. The new covenant this book speaks of is lodged deeply within yourself already. Your heart will take you there. I assure you, this book heralds something wonderful. A special note. One of the grandest gifts I could give the reader is to introduce 2 small volumes, The Gospel According to Thomas and Lao Tse's Tao Te Ching. You may be familiar with them already. If not, you will enjoy them mightily. The Thomas Sayings of Jesus came into my studies around 1958 when they were first published in English. They came ringing a hallelujah chorus of bells within me, confirming my own insights and intuitions of many years, just as the Tao Te Ching had done earlier. Now, these years later, the authenticity and antiquity of Thomas is an established fact recognized by scholars the world round. And I am not the only one to deduce that both men are making essentially the same subjective statement and addressing the innocent, guileless child within us all. These 2 books require a reading from a subjective point of view wherein they make a consistent metaphysics. Neither book can be comprehended by the Western set of mind that views things as separate objects out there in the world. If the reader should find unfamiliar quotations from Jesus as he reads this book, he can find them in The Gospel According to Thomas. It might be well to note that Lao Tse preceded Jesus in history by about 5 centuries. The scholar can follow the Gnostic idea from east to west to its birth as a doctrine of love in the 1st century AD, only to have all traces of its original subjectivism removed from the worldly view within the first 500 years of its history. Interestingly, this is what both Jesus and Lao Tse said would happen, and the prophets before them. However, both men say, in nearly identical terms, that in the final days of linear time, there is nothing hidden that shall not be revealed, and there is nothing covered that shall remain without being uncovered.